Welcome back to the Director's Garage. I'm back in the saddle, folks, and it's looking a little more like Tennessee every day. How you doing? Well, I'm your host and resident idiot, Michael, and today, guys, we're going to be looking at this little box right here. This is the Eversolo A6. It's a box that has just rocked my world lately. There is so much to love about this little device at just $750. I would add this thing to my rig in a second for a number of the features we're going to discuss in this episode. But let's back up and talk about what it is, what it does, where are the limitations, and where can you buy it? That was a little unfair. That was a little bit of a setup because you can buy this thing at Audio 46, who graciously sent me this unit to review. Audio 46 is your one-stop superstore when it comes to the world of personal audio. Whatever you need, they got it. Like the brand new Abyss Joel, or the new Odyssey Carbon 2, or even try out this very Eversolo A6. There's a version 2 now, but here's the best part. If you use the coupon code Director's Garage, all one word, you can knock an extra 5% off most of the gear they carry. They ship fast and free, and I can't think of a reason to shop anywhere else.
Check out the ergonomics.
Okay, guys, we're going to kick this off with ergonomics because I just love the look of this thing. I feel a little like the Price is Right girl. Without the hair. Without any hair, for that matter. Jesus. Well, this thing is simple, it's classy, and it can still bring the bling when you want it to. Kind of like me, said no one ever. Please. Well, this device, though, it is simple to operate. I didn't need a manual to get this thing up on its skis. It's so very intuitive. The menus are laid out logically. Settings and setup are straightforward. The graphics, well, they're spectacular, guys. You can display your basic information, a bunch of VU meter options, and who doesn't love a VU meter? Or you can go full dazzle mode with the display of the audio spectrum in several different varieties. The display is outrageously fast and reactive, like a rabbit on the first day of hunting season. Anyone? Well, unreal, though, for its $750 price tag. There are a few tweaks I'd like to see. The first is the home button. It's small and near the bottom right of the screen. It should be more prominent. I'd personally like to see an even larger screen, but that's kind of me being greedy, and a bigger screen would mean a bigger device, and I don't want that either. But let's get into features and sound. What exactly does this thing do? Well, first off, it's a front end for Roon, and if you have a Nucleus or a computer running Roon, you select the Eversolo as a source, and it will show you what's going on in the most graphical and fun way you'll ever find for under $1,000. You can also load up an internal SSD drive, sold separately with your favorite music, or omit the card and just hang a drive off the back via USB. It can talk to your computer for easy playback. It can connect to Wi-Fi, though it disables Wi-Fi when you plug in an Ethernet cable. It also streams internally. You can call up and select any song in the Tidal or Qobuz universes if you have the accounts, though it works best through a phone app or Roon as its front end. It's not so great to try and find an artist using just the touch screen. If you're in the app, you can select streaming and Tidal, and it will take you to the actual Tidal app. It's seamless and slick, like a greased dolphin. Whatever, you get the point. So what can this device not do? And I'm just hypnotized by these VU meters. I just love them. Well, you can't connect a Bluetooth headphone to this. That's unfortunate. Nor can you plug in a headphone direct. There's no amp inside this device. It's meant to feed an external amp or even a DAC. Speaking of which, you can't select the USB-C input and send out a digital signal over USB. And there's a reason you might want to do that, as you'll see. But there are so many use cases for this device, even given its few limitations. Now, I need to mention that there is no included hardware remote with the A6. Now, there's a few things here. In the menus, it looks to me like the remote is actually a Bluetooth remote, which means you're not going to be able to stream in over Bluetooth and use the external remote simultaneously. Personally, I don't see much of a need for this hardware remote. It's going to cost you more money. They're trying to keep the cost of this thing down. That's the whole point of it. And your phone will do so much more anyway. Guys, you have full control of this device through an app on your phone. I don't see much of a use case for Bluetooth streaming either. You've got Wi-Fi, USB, Ethernet, so many different input connections. In addition to playing music off a drive on the back, you're going to get a better result using something other than Bluetooth anyway. So, how does this thing sound? Well, how do I tap dance around this? It sounds okay, and it sounds pretty good on its own. The DAC is reasonable for its price, and on average gear, it will give you a nice experience. Now, to their credit, they're using two DAC chips. They're 9038 Q2M DAC chips. Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Oh, God. You know, it's the same DAC chips that they're using in some of the topping and ESS Sabre devices, and I've heard better, like the Chord Mojo at around this price tag. There was nothing I heard that was wrong with the sound of the A6, but obviously when you start A/Bing this device with some higher end gear, you begin to hear where they're saving some money. Where they didn't skimp is in the software. This device has a 15-band graphic equalizer and a 10-band parametric equalizer. Both come with a healthy number of presets, or you can dial it in yourself. You can independently adjust the EQ on each channel, so if you have a hearing loss on specific frequencies in one ear, you can send each ear a different EQ. That is an insane amount of sound shaping control, plus you get a balance control. You can use this EQ even if you're passing the digital signal onto an outboard DAC, as long as the source is the Eversolo Rune network, more on that in a moment, or the internal streamer or internal storage. I did not expect that to work, but you cannot add EQ on digital sources like USB-C or optical. You can adjust this with the touchscreen, but I found it's better to use the Eversolo app on your phone or tablet. It's hard to grab those sliders and make the adjustments on the touchscreen. One more note about the app: you can screencast the entire A6 display to your iPhone or tablet, but get this, it's interactive, guys. You can operate the A6 just as if you're using the front panel of the touchscreen, but it's on your phone. It's incredible. But let's talk a little more about that timing. The internal clock isn't particularly high-end. You can step up in clock quality by jumping to the Master Edition of the A6, which gives you a fancy gold badge on the front, but it gives you better timing. You can get a better DAC by jumping up to the A8 or the Eversolo A10, along with an even better internal clock. Because in the digital world, guys, the clock is everything. And this one, well, it's just okay. You know, it's under $1,000. But you really have to start climbing that price ladder to get into the higher end Eversolo boxes. And I just remind you, the A10 clocks in at $4,000. That's a lot of clocking. But for the A6, my preferred setup was to outboard the digital signal to the DAC of my choice. In this case, the Lena over USB, and then I would slave off the Lena's clock, which is both spectacular and 40 times more expensive. Okay, so I'm having a little bit of a laugh at the expense of the A6 on its internals, but remember, first of all, this is a $750 device, and I don't think this is intended to be your one-stop solution for all things digital, although it can be. What I think this device is a physical and visual front end for your digital streaming life. And on that note, this device is like no other. And I couldn't trip this thing up for playback. I sent this thing ultra high res files, and it simply sent the format onto the Lena to decode. Ultra high res, DSD 256, PCM 352.8. No issues anywhere. Now, I would mention there's an internal setting to tell this unit to pass on the DSD natively, also MQA. Once those things were sorted, the Lena simply took whatever the Eversolo sent it, and the DCS did its thing. But you can let the device decode DSD down to PCM and then send that along if you don't have a DSD capable DAC. But it handled all of these formats, and it will handle them internally if that's your setup. Now, I should also mention that this thing let me know when there were software updates, and this device did 2 software updates over the course of this review. And that says that Eversolo is hard at work improving even their older devices, because this is 1 generation old. There's a new generation of this now, along with updating their current models. That's a good sign. For reference, the DCS has only sent out 1 software revision since I purchased this thing. And they did add a lot of useful features, but I'd feel more confident if they were doing more updates. Eversolo Roon Network. Those 3 words are very important if you're in the Roon world, because you can feed this thing a signal over USB or Ethernet. But you want to select Eversolo Roon Network as your output from Roon to get the best out of the A6. Once it's feeding to that output, the Eversolo Roon Network, you can route the signal any way you want, digital or analog, while it gives you one hell of a graphic and light show, including gorgeous album art. If you're on the USB input, as I said earlier, you can't output the digitally encoded signal to an outboard DAC to decode, and you don't get the full graphic show of the data. Yeah, it omits that album art, and that's a bummer. But here's the real rub. I had days when I fired up this system and the Eversolo Roon Network option wouldn't come up as a Roon playback source on my computer. It could be the computer's fault. It could be a glitch because I don't have a formal Roon core here, or it could be something in the A6's software. But it was frustrating, and it would take the joy out of using this device when it wouldn't show up as an Eversolo Roon Network node, getting the importance of those 3 words. And when that happened, I found myself, I'd just stream over my phone through Tidal, or I would play back some of the files off of the drive. I just couldn't route the signal to properly take advantage of my outboard DAC under Roon when those words didn't come up. That said, I would go weeks without any problem, and then I'd have a few days of struggle with the thing. The last few weeks, I will say, it's been flawless, and it may have been that software update I talked about. Not sure. But for the most part, this thing worked as intended. Now, you get this unit to talk to Roon by selecting internal playback, in which case, if you've got it set up with Roon, you'll get this funky little Roon Ready logo up in the upper left corner telling you that Roon has control, and it will deliver it all the information about what Roon is sending to the unit. On internal mode, you have full access to all of the A6's outputs, including that pass-through where it's sending raw USB data to your outboard DAC. If you're playing back onboard files through either an SSD or an external drive, you can send that unencoded audio out to the DAC, same as with streaming or if Roon had control. This lets the unit be a true streamer only, a front end with beautiful graphics and all of your music with full control of the playback, which is great. You can even make micro adjustments using the volume knob if you just want to pull the sound back a little bit without having to go across the room to your amp like I do here. And this thing defaults to a snazzy 70s era flip clock as a screensaver. Do I need this device? No, I don't need it, but I want it. Why do I want to? It makes streaming so much more fun and enjoyable, which is the whole point. It allowed me to explore more of my music. Also, the whole point. I could see exactly what's going on at just a glance and a touch of a couple of buttons. I had full control of my music. I love the visuals on this thing. I'm never tired of them, and who ever gets tired of seeing a VU meter? So I think for my purposes, the A6 is definitely the way to go. I don't know how good the DAC and the clock is on the A8, but I'd bet dinner that it isn't better than the Lena and the Lena clock. So if I had the A8, I'd just be using it exactly as I'm using the A6 now. So why shell out all that extra money for features I wouldn't use? This gives me a much better graphic front end for streaming, full access to my library through an external drive. It's basically improving on the Lena's limited display and accessibility. The front end app on the Lena isn't the best for streaming, and there's no play or pause button on the Lena. Here, we got touchscreen, baby. We can pause, we can play, jump tracks. I can get a nice visual display experience. I would love to add this thing to my desktop. I wish I could hunt down why the Eversolo Rune network option would disappear from time to time. It hasn't lost that network in weeks now. Maybe the software update I did corrected the issue? We may never know. But it would be nice to be able to route any incoming signal to the DAC direct. And I'd also love to send direct to a Bluetooth headphone as an option for when I want to dance around the studio like no one's watching. Oh boy, I should never do that again. Given its price, the Focal Batiste would be an excellent pairing, I think. But on balance, for under $1,000, you get an excellent touchscreen front end for whatever streaming setup you like. And for that purpose, I can give this an easy recommendation. After spending a few months with this unit, yeah, the hype is real. Just understand that with all of these features come a few compromises.
Wrap this damn show up.
So that's the Eversolo A6. Now, there is a newer version of this on the market for $850. You can find it and all the other Eversolo products on Audio 46. And I got to thank my good friends over there for sending this terrific device my way. I'm going to be so sad to send this thing back. Now, up next, we're going back to the ESTAT world for an episode, so make sure you
like and subscribe to the director's garage. It don't cost nothing.
Thank you for stopping by the garage today. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the Eversolo A6. Give this episode a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, or you can pound the thumbs down if that's what you're into. And we'll ride off into the sunset and see y'all before you know it.
Lord, help me. Help me find my way. Oh, to the director's garage.